OK, let's take a look now at the latest business news with our editor, Stephen Carroll. Stephen, we're going to start with more details emerging on what happened during the latest round of US-China trade talks.
That's right. There were 3 days of discussions, and certainly the markets had some optimism that progress had been made that would avoid an escalation of the trade war once its 3-month truce expires at the beginning of March. Now, we're still waiting for news of any breakthrough from these talks, but the Chinese Commerce Ministry has been giving us some details, describing the talks as extensive and thorough and saying that progress was made on issues including forced transfers of technology and intellectual property rights from American companies. On the American side, the US Trade Representative said the talks also focused on Chinese commitments to buy more goods from the United States. So, does this mean that Presidents Trump and Xi will resolve their differences before the truce expires? I've been speaking about this to analyst Ian Bremer. He's head of the risk consultancy group Eurasia.
Both of these leaders are incented to say that things are going well. And just like with the North Koreans, when Trump says he wants a deal, it doesn't need to be a very big deal for him to say, look at what I did. So I would be stunned if on March 1st, the deadline for these new tariffs to come online, if Trump were to actually say, we're going to move to 25% tariffs. That won't happen. But while there will be some level of agreement on trade, the broader U.S.-China relationship is actually heading in a much more negative direction.
Well, let's turn to the stock markets next. And with no great cues coming out of those talks for investors to digest, they've moved on to discussing company results here in Europe. Retailers at the fore of reporting today, highlighting different problems in different places. Here in France, the electrical retailer Fnac Darty down almost 5% their shares after reporting that the Yellow Vest protests here in France cost it some 45 million euros over the Christmas period. In the UK, the supermarket chain Tesco was up 2% after its results. Rival Marks & Spencer's reporting a fall in sales, though its shares trading pretty flat at the open. This is the picture across the European markets, all London, Paris and Frankfurt trading in the red. Over in Asia, we had shares falling back today after the rallies that we saw yesterday. Again, optimism over the trade talks driving that. Today, though, we had some Chinese data highlighting, I should say, a slowdown in demand for Chinese factories. Shanghai Composite down by 1/3 of 1%. The Nikkei in Tokyo actually finishing the day down over 1%. On the currency markets, euro is trading for $1.15 and just over 90 pence sterling. Now, Mexico is facing a growing fuel crisis after the government shut down several pipelines in an effort to stop theft by criminal gangs. There were long lines at petrol stations in many cities after the state-owned oil company Pemex switched to transporting oil by road. Pemex says the queues are a result of panic buying rather than shortages. Yuka Royer has the story.
A bit of entertainment to cheer people up as they wait patiently at a petrol station. Gasoline is slow to come by these days as a crackdown against illegal fuel theft continues. Fighting a crime that has drained billions of dollars from state coffers is the first major move against corruption by Mexico's new president, who took office last month. Soldiers have been deployed to protect tank lorries, and some key pipelines have been shut off completely to prevent organized criminal groups from siphoning off fuel. But the measures have triggered shortages at the pumps, and some business leaders are warning that industries like car manufacturing will suffer if the problem persists. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador urged motorists not to panic, but stood firm over his decision.
It would be easy to reopen the pipelines and say the situation is back to normal. But we won't do that, because they're still stealing it.
López Obrador said fuel theft has dropped from 787 truckloads per day to just 175 in the past 3 weeks. Last year, the leftist president said the endemic crime was costing the country up to $3.5 billion annually. It has been blamed for rising violence in some states as rival gangs fight for control over the oil black market.
Fiat Chrysler is to pay more than $700 million to settle legal action over cheating on emissions tests in the United States. The carmaker was sued over claims that it used cheating software on more than 100,000 diesel vehicles. According to the Reuters news agency, Fiat Chrysler will pay more than $300 million to federal and Californian authorities and around $280 million to settle a lawsuit by owners. Well, finally, from me, the Mayor of New York has announced plans to oblige employers to give workers paid holiday. The move would be a first for a city in the United States. It's estimated that there are 500,000 workers in New York who don't get paid vacation days. The proposed legislation would see full-time workers in companies of more than 5 people get a minimum of 10 days paid leave per year. Eve.
Absolutely a fan of that plan, I have to say. Stephen Carroll, thanks a lot for that business update.